Greetings, it is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It's time to continue our discussion on Pathfinder, the role-playing game system. We last left off, we had moved through the weather you can encounter when you're traveling. Let's talk about something completely different. The planes. Now, in the vast scope of things, the vast scope of worlds you can explore, there are planets, continents, galaxies, worlds. You can go vast beyond these locations that you think just seem normal to a vast imaginary area far beyond anything you could actually think about. The planes themselves. These are beyond the scope of your normal imagination, and the fact is, there are all kinds of planes you could visit that are out there, but they come in 5 basic types when we talk about them, because we were talking about the vast multiverse. The dimensions and all the planes are known as the Great Beyond. It's everything. Now the 5 types, the first one is material planes. Material planes are worlds with natural laws, much like the real world. In another plane, the natural laws could be completely different, but here, they match our own. And this, the world, the universe of a material plane, matters depending on your campaign size. It could be as small as a continent, the world you're building. It could be a planet, a galaxy. Whatever is appropriate to the universe you're building with around this material plane is what you're going to effectively use for it. It's going to fit what you feel is appropriate. Now let's talk about the transitive planes. There are 3 transitive planes which overlap with other planes. They're basically areas in between planes almost, but are planes themselves. All of them have the strongest connections to material planes. Strongest at the center of reality, almost, you could say. Now, as I said, most of them you require magic of some sort to travel to. You fortunately can find portals and things to them, or you can use kind of planar magic to travel to them. The Astral Plane is effectively this kind of open and vast space. It is used to connect between the material and the inner planes and the outer planes. It is also the realm that souls go to travel from the material plane to the outer planes and their final resting points. This endless waste has these motes of reality spattered throughout it. Now the Ethereal Plane is ghostly. It's almost a ghostly representation of our own plane and connects between here and the plane of shadows, which technically is a transitive plane for itself. That's very interesting that it is a connecting point, a transitive into a transitive. Interesting. But the ethereal plane itself, as I said, it's a ghostly representation of our own that you can pass through seemingly anything as if it was a ghost and you were what was real. Strange creatures that have ways of influencing reality can be found here. Now the plane of shadows, though, that is a twisted reflection of our own realm. It is smaller than our world and weirdly different, almost changed in some kind of way. There's this overlying element of negative energy from the negative energy plane that flows through here in this grim, colorless land. Now the inner planes. The inner planes represent the building blocks of reality themselves. They do not overlap directly with the material plane or any other plane, but the elements contained within them are critically important to the construction, elemental-wise, of the material plane and many others. So they themselves are all representation of various energies. There are the 4 primal elemental energies: air, fire, water, and earth. These, of course, represent each of these elements. Then there is the energy planes. The energy planes are the positive energy plane and the negative energy plane. The energies of these planes flow through the material world and represent the beginnings of life and the ends of life. Both of them are tapered to life as it goes throughout its existence. Positive energy is there when you're born, and the negative energy of when you die. Now let's talk about the outer planes. The outer planes are interesting because they are beyond the scope of your normal imagination. Most of them have an alignment base to them, basically based around some kind of ethical or view to it. They can have their own laws of nature, far beyond anything we would imagine. This is the place where souls go for their final resting place. The souls of the material plane go here. It's also a place that gods hold their courts. Now for your campaign, the outer planes should reflect whatever is appropriate to your world. The basic ones that are usually provided, they make a fine example, and you can use them just fine. For most campaign worlds, they would be appropriate. But if your campaign world requires something else completely different, then feel free to either alter one of these outer planes to make it feel more appropriate to what fits your campaign world, or, if you really want to, you can make up ones on your own that would replace the ones that we would be using that feel, again, appropriate to what works within your campaign world. Now we want to move on from planes, which can be vast and infinite, especially the outer planes, could virtually be infinite. But we find Demi Plains. Demi Plains are small extra-dimensional spaces, more often than not connected to the Ethereal and the Astral Plane. They are oftentimes have a certain size to them. They could be as small as 100 feet across. You could have a small plane of existence. And if you're connected to the Ethereal or the Astral Plane, you have your way in. Some of them aren't connected in that way and require either some kind of obscure magic, or you have to find some kind of special portal or something similar in order to gain entry into this place, which may be difficult to find overall. Now, planes can have multiple layers, especially when we're talking about the outer planes. These layers can be almost in themselves different planes. They seem almost like that. They could be vastly different environments with vastly different rules, but the fact is, they are intrinsically connected to each other, which forms them into being one plane. So it's effective that they are not themselves separate. They're not layered. There's a connection on a sort of spiritual and alignment-based level, combined with the fact that they oftentimes have portals and other ways of connecting them. They might even be physically connected, even though when you're walking from one location to another, it's effectively another plane. When you would travel into a plane with multiple layers, you're going to be whatever is the first layer to it, whatever would be well defined as the first level of that area. Traditionally, you would find some kind of portal to travel in between them. It does not mean you can use other kinds of planar travel magic to somehow travel into other levels. It's just that you would have to find a way. Normally you're taken to this first one. Now also it's possible breaking this down, planes, think of them almost as separate planets, separate worlds. They don't really touch each other ever. They're planets passing in an orbit. But there are times where you find overlaps that makes planes different than planets. Just a little unique thing about it. When an overlap occurs, you find the same location on both of these planes existing at the same place on both of them. So effectively, it's a point in time where the two become one, where you could easily walk from one plane to another plane without even noticing any difference between it. These points of overlap are rare, but when they do occur, again, it's just a way that you can walk into another plane and you don't even know that you're doing it. You could know that you're doing it, but it could just occur randomly that you're walking along and, hey, I'm in this entirely different plane completely. So that's it for today. I talked about some basics of the cosmology that you're going to be using with Pathfinder, the multiverse, the various planes you could visit. I talked about the 5 different types of planes. I talked about the material planes, the world that you're effectively normally building, whatever is equivalent to reality in your universe. I talked about the transitive planes, the places that technically overlap between a bunch of planes, the inner planes, elemental planes, energy-based planes that fill the building blocks of the universe. Of course, the outer planes, which form the areas where souls go from the dead and where the gods rule from. And of course, Demi Plains, which are a unique kind of sub-planes which can exist, small pockets of reality in various places. Though again, similar to the outer planes, they can have their own reality. It's just that they're so small and so limited access and kind of put in such a way that they don't form a plane of their own. They don't have that same power, same existence. I also talked about a few interesting cases, layers, places that overlap. In the next episode, I'm going to move on from here and talk about environmental factors, many of which can be hazardous to your characters, some that might just be things that you're going to be overcoming as you're adventuring. But regardless, if you have any questions, comments, anything you would say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It shows your favorite channel, The Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon, Link to description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.